A picture is worth 1,000 words. Watch as we each tell our individual yet collective story of what it is like to be between mold and a wet spot, while we sit upon the shores of the digital age, planning and envisioning the 21st century library.
On August 29, 2005, the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina changed the course of history in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. Widespread flooding destroyed the majority of homes and businesses in the area. Today, many homes and businesses still sit in disrepair. Sadly, this includes the Leonard S. Washington Memorial Library.
Linda Hill was the first to assess the damage in the library.
The African Antiquities Collection previously consisted of 1,000 artifacts, of which only 728 were rescued. When I entered the library to see the devastation, I was clearly devastated because everything was virtually destroyed. It wasn't until American Institute of Conservation conservators telling me that the artifacts could be restored that I realized that there was hope for anything.
Well, as far as recovery, we knew almost immediately that everything on the first floor had been destroyed. And then eventually we were informed that almost everything on the second and third floors had been condemned because of contamination by mold and vermin and other factors. So basically we have to start from scratch. Right now we have about 30 computers, and we will have to expand that when we move back over. We're going to need all the furnishings, and you know, we right now we probably have several thousand books, less than 10,000 physical books. So there's quite a bit of rebuilding to do.
The library staff had to endure multiple moves, first to Southern in Baton Rouge, then to Sophie B. Wright.
It was very stressful and frustrating because we didn't have any equipment or supplies. We were located in the basement at Sophie B. Wright with the physical education department, so it was stressful and very noisy.
Since moving into our trailer, we definitely have a space problem. We are 2 or 3 to 1 office. We have journals received from the bindery still in boxes in our trailer because of lack of shelving space. So students and faculty really don't have access to our print collection of journals and books. Some are in storage facilities off campus.
Currently, the physical government documents collection is limited to 2 shelves. Consequently, I have to be very selective about which items I decide to display. Online government information isn't affected by our space constraints. Previously, I created a website called GIO Library to guide students in locating online government information. Using this online resource, I was able to immediately resume providing services and make up for any deficiencies in our physical collection.
I came back to SUNO in June of 2006, 8 months after the hurricane, and right after the hurricane there was only one staff member from tech services who had returned to work, and she was a library specialist. So there was nobody, no professional librarian that worked in technical services at the time on staff when they came back after the hurricane. And so we were getting a lot of donations in, and there was nobody to make any decisions about what to keep and what to discard and stuff like that. And then the online catalog was brought back up, but it still had all of the titles that were in prior to the hurricane, which we no longer had access to. So when the public services librarians would assist students, they would have to try and figure out which things were which titles were things that we currently had versus what we had before. And so when I came back to work, I decided that we would shadow the titles that we no longer had access to. Ideally, I would have just been able to shadow everything that was created before August 25th, 2005, but we had a lot of titles that were in electronic format, and we had been adding copies to titles that we had prior to the hurricane if we got a replacement title, so I couldn't just choose a cutoff date and go with that. I worked with 2 members of the Lewis staff, and we set up parameters to run a report that would allow us to weed out the records for titles with new copies and for ones that had valid electronic addresses, and that took about 2 months to complete.
The first thing I did when I came in is that I surveyed all the staff who were here. I questioned them about what the library was like pre-Katrina. We also talked about those things which they would like to see in the library post-Katrina. And furthermore, what we want to see in the library, not just in our temporary site, but what we want to see in our permanent building. Other things that I've done is I've attended meetings with contractors. I've met with state officials who are working with recovery. I've done worksheet after worksheet for FEMA. I've written grants. I've just pretty much done everything that I think I'm supposed to do to make sure that we get back there, both in design and money.
Recently, the library has been able to expand its operations.
We moved from a small office in the library trailer to the rear of the General Computer Lab. Now we have a more spacious work area.
As far as library improvements are concerned, I believe a larger staff would be extremely helpful, as we are few in numbers now. We also need a more up-to-date building, and more importantly, we need a separate electronic research area from the reading area and study area. Oh, and we could also use a staff lounge.
Right now, the major improvement that students will see right off the bat when they come in is that there will be an increase in technology in the library. And when I say increase in technology, I'm not talking about just computers and equipment, but the way that they receive the services, the delivery of the services. We're in the process of scanning all of our reserve items so that students, whether they're on campus or at home, they can access them electronically. We're incorporating various elements of the library's training and modules into the online classes, into the Blackboard. So I think that's going to be one of the big changes that students will see and appreciate.